Greetings, everybody. This is Christopher Messina coming at you from the Messy Time Studios on a glorious Florida pre-hurricane election day. I'm joined in the studios by Laura DiBenedetto, who are you also here in Florida now? Where are you?
I am. I'm in Jacksonville.
Great. Both
I'm
in
enjoying
Florida.
the wind today, not for nothing.
And enjoying the wind. Nicole is giving us a taste of what is to come. So it's very exciting. I just found out the school was canceled, so I'm going to be enduring my kids for days. So thank you for taking the time to come on the studio. And for those of us who are unaware of who you are, maybe a little bit of background on who you are, what you do, and how you come to the great state of Florida.
Sure. Well, I do a couple of things. Right now, the thing that I'm most notably, I guess, infamous for is being a professional hornet's nest kicker. And standing up for people's rights and being very vocal about the First Amendment and obviously the Second, because my husband and I created a manufacturing company for ammunition. We started the company officially in 2021, but we got our FFL in 2022. So whatever we did last year didn't matter. It's all about this year. And right now we're doing rounds of investor funding to help us to scale the company. There's a lot of demand for a brand that people want to get behind, where people feel like they're properly represented by a company who loves them and is actively trying to bring about the kind of future we all want, that has silly things like liberty and justice and
So
sovereignty.
you're voting straight Democrat today?
I'm sorry?
So you're voting straight Democrat today?
That would be a no for me, dog.
Fair enough.
Yeah, no. Before this, my husband and I lived in Hawaii, and we were there in the peak of the pandemic, which, for a bit there, it was pretty cool walking on the most beautiful beaches on the planet, in my humble opinion, with not a soul on them except me. I mean, that was amazing. But then, the restrictions were so onerous and illogical, and I had my fill of having my sovereignty trampled on a consistent basis. There was a snitch line, there was surveillance vans. I was like, I'm opting out of my free trial of authoritarianism. So we're going to move to the free state of Florida because we love Ronnie.
Yep.
And obviously, I think you can tell who I voted for. I mean, I voted with my home purchase, so why wouldn't I vote at the ballot box?
Right.
So before Hawaii, we were in Massachusetts. I retired from my first company in 2018. It's a marketing company, and I started that when I was pretty young. I was 19 at the time. The whole retirement journey was very interesting, made me realize I never prioritize happiness or well-being. I just did that whole hustle and grind BS. So I ended up writing a best-selling book, doing a TED Talk. That was awesome. Fun. So I have things going on, and sitting still is something I am apparently violently allergic to. But yeah, I'm just out here trying to make the world better, in your head, in your heart, with your constitutional rights, whatever. But I stand for sovereignty.
Well done. And of course, the First Amendment is pointless without the Second Amendment. So we love the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
No question. I mean, we started this particular podcast in the midst of the Wuhan hysteria, which is purely government manufactured and absolute madness. And part of my mission now, which I think dovetails neatly with yours, is I refuse to let these clowns declare victory and get away with it. Because if they're allowed to say that all their nonsense worked, they'll do it again, right? They're doing it.
Oh, so you're also not allowing pandemic amnesty and double barrel middle fingers?
That's madness. I mean,
did you read my article about that on the Sovereign Ammo website?
We saw the article from and nothing makes me laugh harder than a professor of economics at Brown telling me anything about anything. But
yeah, how about
absolute madness. They're panicked. They understand that.
That article got taken off of LinkedIn. I posted it, and I had the most vanilla comment to go with it. Some Karen came along, reported me, and it got taken down. I'm like, you know what? Y'all suck.
Oh, well, there's that.
You hate free speech, don't you? Is that because you're owned by Bill Gates?
Pretty much. I've been having a lot of fun because I've done a lot of work with Microsoft Security over the years. I know a lot of the executive teams, so I'm just making their lives miserable because I got booted off LinkedIn because, and this was, look, I'm a free speech absolutist, right? I had Harvey Silverglate was on the show a few weeks ago. He is, he is radical left. I am pretty much what you call right today. But when it comes to free speech, no daylight between us. You're not allowed to tell people what to say. Fair enough. But LinkedIn has their little codes, right? Which are, of course, arbitrarily.
And they're incredibly vague.
Oh, yeah.
And they're specifically like ambiguous. So basically they can just be like, ooh, I don't like this. Delete. Oh, yeah. Ooh, I don't like this. Delete. Oh, you're conservative. Delete. Yeah, I was suspended for a week in August. I was actually on vacation at the time. So I was like, all right. But like trying to get in touch with somebody, impossible. Oh, yeah. It won't give you an email address, nothing. And you know what? I had some really strong opinions about Bill Gates.
If you're not paying for the product, you're
Agenda
the product.
2030 and LinkedIn. So
if you're not paying for the product, you're the product. And frankly, the information about my network and my experience is more valuable to LinkedIn than whatever they've ever done is to me. So I'm done. So I the reason I've been thrown off finally was I found some bunch of clowns spewing anti-Jewish hatred straight out of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Like ridiculous. Like every American Jew is a genocidal maniac. All right, well, because it's LinkedIn and they have a policy, I flagged it. I got a response in 30 seconds saying, no, that's perfectly fine. That's great. That's great stuff. I said, okay, then I'll respond. So I responded criticizing this group of lunatics screaming conspiracy theories about Jews. And for that, I was kicked off because I'm bullying them. And they asked me to submit my passport as verification. I'm like, when the CEO of LinkedIn and all the executive team photocopy their passports and send them to me, because you're right, I don't know who I'm dealing with. Good point. You should tell me who you are. Nonsense. Right. Anyway, I like to slip that into every single conversation, but you were already simpatico to that. So I had Emily Burns came on yesterday to talk about this amnesty thing. And what I find so hilarious, I want your thoughts. Amnesty presupposes there was a trial and an admission of guilt as a precursor to offering someone amnesty. The left is not saying they did anything wrong. They want this all to go away, and they want us all to bless them and say it was fine. I mean, what are your first top 50 thoughts about the damage these clowns did over this hysteria?
I mean, if we can handle a little salt on this show, fuck off, and fuck off. No. And you can fill out number 4 through 50 of the same. Right. No, suicides went up. Children have speech delays. Women had to stay home with their abusive partners. Businesses were closed. Families were irreversibly destroyed. The supply chain is fucked. We've got people who are dead now because of all of these failed policies. People have endured incredible PTSD, myself included, from the way people made them feel. People were excluded. I don't know if you're Jewish. I don't know if you know, yes. If you're not Jewish, I don't know, but I will tell you there's strong correlations here with the Holocaust.
Oh, yeah.
You don't make an entire class of people look dirty and evil to another class of people and expect nothing bad to come of it.
Yep.
So again, see Exhibit A, B, and C. Fuck off, and fuck off. You can take your amnesty and shove that right up your ass. You don't deserve it. I had a friend of mine who actually did do the work, so I forgave her. She said to me that unvaccinated people should not be allowed on airplanes. We didn't speak for about 9 months because I was like, okay, there's so much wrong with that. I can't even begin to unpack this for you. And you're Jewish. Right. So this will be interesting. And I need lots of space away from you. So eventually she ended up apologizing and, sharing a bottle of water with me. Yeah. So there were a lot of behaviors that went along with her words. Right. And she ended up alluding to, without actually outright saying it, I updated my opinions and I get to do that. I'm like, you do get to do that. That's a sign of growth.
It's a sign of growth. Absolutely. People are allowed to say, I panicked.
It's like, you shared a bottle of water with one of the smellies.
Wow. That's impressive.
Are you sure you're not going to die?
Sure you're not going to die? Yeah. So, you're dropping over dead everywhere.
She did the work. And I really acknowledge her for that, because to admit when you're wrong takes a profound amount of character, but not just to admit that you were wrong, but to actually atone for it and really work hard to invest in the relationship going forward, to re-strengthen what was broken. but also to change your behavior so differently. Because here's the thing. I mean, I realize I'm a little bit salty about this for a lot of reasons, Exhibit A, fuck off. But like, I really believe in forgiveness. I do. But I also believe in it. There's a difference between what God asks of us to do and what humanity asks of us to do. I'm not in my celestial body right now. I'm in my human body. And one of the ways to keep people from repeating shitty behavior is to hold them accountable.
Absolutely.
And you don't get a free pass. And that's why I say no to this amnesty thing. I say no to this whole free pass forgiveness thing. No, do not collect $200. Do not pass go. I don't think so. Like, you need to change your behavior, because if you just want the amnesty without doing the work, without the contrition, without the apology, without the admission of guilt, you're going to do it again. And I'm sorry, but we can't take that. Everything that you see that's going on right now that is on fire is because of all these failed policies, the hyperbole, the fear mongering, you name it. Okay. There's a lot of evil going on. If anybody thinks that Klaus Schwab is a good man, I would offer some alternative points of view on that one. I just think I want to break it there. I want to misinformed.
I want to dive in on this, right? Because this I find absolutely fascinating, right? And as I constantly have this discussion with friends, right? The line between drawing a bunch of connections between people who think a certain way and then skipping over into grand conspiracy can be a very dangerous one, right? I'm not saying you're saying that, but the Klaus Schwab triggers that in me, because I deal with a lot of folks.
Seems like a leap for some people until they've done the research, and then they're like, "Oh shit, that's not a leap."
Well, it depends on what you're leaping to, right? Because I know a lot of folks who go to the World Economic Forum, and they're bankers and consultants and international business people. Not one of them is packing for Davos, folding their T-shirts, saying we're going to kill 1 billion people and make Pfizer money. Like that, none of them are doing that. Do ideas matter? Ideas matter enormously, right? So to the extent that a group of powerful people tend to adopt a set of beliefs that would change their behaviors, we're all aiming to do that. The show is aiming to do that, right? But and does a kind of Central European, obnoxious, arrogant intellectual aristocrat want to be like Schwab, a pain in the ass? Yeah, but kind of what specifically about what Klaus does with his time do you find so menacing? And it may well be menacing, but like, what do you find so menacing about him?
Well, I think he's got some ideas about population control, about mass vaccination, about basically the size of the planet, who gets to live on it, what happens in it. You'll own nothing and be happy. It's a very, very elitist, and I mean that in the most insulting possible way. It's an elitist point of view that basically says, well, I'm rich and powerful, and therefore I get to decide what your life looks like, because you're nothing to me. In fact, you're just nothing, period. And I have a tremendous problem with that, because all lives are sovereign and have value. The person on the side of the road collecting dimes because they're hungry has value. The person at the top of the food chain has value. Everybody has value. And to be so dismissive of a person's worth is just repugnant. And the way it's executed, I'm sorry, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't have a tinfoil hat, but I will tell you, I've been called a conspiracy theorist because I notice things earlier than other people do. And that's basically what a conspiracy theorist is these days. And it was a term invented by our own government to debunk people who were onto their shit. So,
of course, right.
So there's that. But like, I think people are spoon-fed a whole bunch of lies, and they willingly believe it because people have this idea of a good and benevolent government or good and benevolent world leadership, because people have ideas about good and benevolent parents, and people have this innate sense of trust in authority figures because it starts when we're babies. And I'm sorry, but you need to question things, because not everybody has your best interests at heart. And when you're doing, Event 201, when you're practicing for COVID 3 months before it starts rolling out across the world, and you do it in lockstep and it's perfect, and you've already got this whole thing planned down to the details, and you start a mass vaccination campaign, and you have all of of these people who are part of the WEF, doing all of the unspeakable things that they did, Jacinda Ardern proudly creating 2 classes of people and screw you to the unvaccinated, and like, absolutely, absolutely, we're creating 2 classes of people and proud of it, you're a fucking monster. And you know what? You have all of these people who are part of the WEF and the Klaus Schwab fan club. Okay, so you have these people who are in world leaderships, and the problem with Klaus Schwab specifically is his reach. The problem is he is persuasive, right? He convinces legions of people. You'll own nothing and be happy about it. It's a great idea.
I've heard that a lot. Again, I know nothing about this clown. I know that folks who go to the forum, it never mattered to me. I was invited once. I don't care in the slightest, right? And
they should start to matter to you.
Well, we'll see. If you pay attention to them, they matter. So
you have tinfoil downstairs. You can make yourself a real nice hat.
Keeps the rain out. The hurricane's coming. So I've heard that line a few times. Is this? What was this? What was this? This is his mantra or something, that people should own nothing and they'll be happy.
It's a big idea that I would encourage you to look into, but it's basically the whole idea of they want there to be no ownership of anything.
Right.
And when they take your ownership of things away, they're taking your sovereignty away. They're trying to introduce the global currency, global leadership, global everything with one central point of control for everything. This is completely a bad idea on all possible fronts, because and you know what? Today being election day is a fine example of that, because, you know, right now our country and a lot of our state governments and local governments are extremely blue. Shit's on fire as a result, because it's too much one way. Okay. Now, if the opposite were true, where it's all red government, all this, all that, things would not be actually any better. It would also be too much the other way. We need equilibrium. And the only way to do that is when you have shared control of power. And when you take all of the different controls of power away and hand it to one, there's no more balance. There's no more rights. It's up to one crazy king who decides what happens in the world. And unless it's you, you're not going to like what that's going to be. I don't get to be king. You don't get to be king. You want some dude in Germany who doesn't like you, who doesn't want you to own anything, to make
decisions. To be too hasty. No, I get that. But you know, to the extent that that's a popular idea, that's not new. I mean, there are plenty of people who love the idea of, you know, some grand coordinating council. It never works, right? So the myriad mistakes and I would say deliberately bad errors in judgment and choices that were made in the last few years. If there's any going to be any helpful kind of outcome, is that people have woken up to that. I hope the results tonight, and God willing, our results are a resounding refutation of all this kind of nonsense. We're going to find out. The American people wake up. I mean, I left New York.
I'd like to tell you that I'm hopeful for that, but I also fully expect rampant cheating. And I mean, you can already see evidence of it already unfolding. Oh, well, you know, we won't know the vote counts till a couple days. Oh, well, we expect a huge deluge of Democrat votes to come in late in the night. Okay, Fetterman.
Well, they vote late, and they all have to work with, you know, look, I feel sorry for all the DNC interns who are getting carpal tunnel, filling out those thousands of ballots and trying to sign it differently. It's tough work.
It is.
Cheating in elections is nothing new. So
no, it's not.
It's not.
Unfortunately, they're making it easier and easier and easier. I mean, look, you know what? You and I might not necessarily agree on the ways to approach things, and that's okay. I'm sure I don't agree with everybody, but my personal view is that people need to not just be awake to what's going on, but actively do things about it. And we need to come together to brainstorm, to find ways beyond just bitching about it online. You know, and I don't know, just voting, because voting, you know, I posted a poll on LinkedIn today. Like, do you believe that your vote matters? Like in your heart, of course it matters, but does it actually matter to the outcome? And a lot of people voted yes. I actually voted, I'm not sure. And some people voted no, because there's a lot of cynics out there. There's a lot of optimists, but frankly, I can't see the full goings on. So I'm not sure. I vote anyway, because I really want my vote to matter.
Yep.
But in some respects, some people are convinced that voting is just an illusion to keep you complacent and compliant while they basically set the world on fire. There's even people who are convinced that Revelations is unfolding right now. I'm not one of those. But I think that things are not good. And there's a lot of people who are totally happy to have vaccine passports because they think it's a good idea.
Well, that madness, thankfully that madness is going away.
Hello, anybody, are you not seeing
Crazy.
the social credit score in China and how if you have an opinion that goes against the narrative that you don't get to buy food?
Having living here in the last free state in America where we didn't do any of this crap, I had to go up to Vermont for a meeting in December of last year. So 8 months ago, 10, whatever. And this is beyond Orwellian because I know how insane the Northeast is. So I called the hotel the night before to say, is there anything I need to be aware of? And they said, oh, well, we requested people, you're required to wear a mask in the lobby. Whatever, I'm going to ignore that anyway. Okay. So I fly up there, I land late. And so I drop my stuff at the hotel and I go out to dinner. Walk into a restaurant, guy asked to see my vaccine card. So I don't have a vaccine card. So, well, you can't eat here. And after the fourth restaurant, I said, well, how do you suggest I eat? And the funny thing is the law had kicked in at midnight that day. So the hotel didn't bother to tell me that as of tomorrow, you can't eat here unless you have a vaccine card. And by the fourth restaurant, I said, should I just go back to my hotel and stitch a yellow star on my jacket? Like, are you all out of your minds? Plus, you have to wear a mask until you go.
In a show me your papers society,
show me your papers, right? Craziness. So I think a lot of that is now going away. My only conviction is that to increase public awareness, to increase people's commitment to this, because this is nothing new. We left New York the day Bill de Blasio was elected mayor the first time. 11% of registered voters in New York City bothered to go vote for their next mayor. And they got a communist who, to his credit, didn't lie, right? He spent his honeymoon in Cuba, and he loved the Sandinistas. So the only good thing about Bill de Blasio is he never lied. He said, I'm a commie, elect me. At least he was honest, right? And then, but 4 years later, after he's destroying the city, 12% of people bothered to vote, and he got reelected. Like, in the biggest win for the elites is they've convinced people to be apathetic. That's their win. When 90% of the electorate don't bother
to not vote because you might get the Ronies if you leave your house.
There you go. It's a nightmare.
Why do you think they did all this mail-in voting? They did all this so they could start stealing elections. I'm sorry, I have very little faith in any elected or non-elected officials right now. Very little would imply that I have any. I should correct that. I have no faith. Okay. The only faith I have is that they will cheat and do anything to hang on to power, because those who love power never want to let it go. I'm sorry. I don't think they're in it to do good things for people. I really don't.
Not many are. And that's not surprising, right? And the Constitution was set up to be guardrails to human nature. It did not presuppose that people. That's a
great way to put that. Guardrails to human nature.
That's exactly what it's for. They had no illusions about human nature. That's why it was set up the way it was. And so there's so many favorite talking points. Like last night,
I think people should probably reposition in their heads that way. It's not, guardrails against government, which it is, but it's guardrails against human nature. Because Joe Biden, what? Every human always wants to have a feeling of self-importance and power. I like to have that. Granted, my reach of power is generally limited to my home address. And even then, I have to share the steering wheel with my husband.
I'm not quite sure I exercise complete autocracy here. But watching Biden last night saying, we're going to ban this and ban that. I'm like, buddy, you specifically took an oath before the nation to uphold the Constitution. Are you telling me there was a secret constitutional convention that took away the Second Amendment and was voted on by 2/3 of states? Really? I missed that. So he is literally up there declaring himself to be a traitor. Literally. I'm going to ban firearms. No, you're not. You're just the president. You're not the king, not the emperor. You're just the president. And if you'll notice, in every corporate structure, the president comes below the CEO and below the board of directors. Where are your board of directors, buddy? You are just an operational Mandarin. And the hubris and arrogance to take a constitutional oath violating statement and turn it into what apparently appeals to, I don't know, 81 million people, if you believe their lies. It's horrifying. I don't know how we get people to wake up to that. I don't know if it's possible.
I don't know. But, here's the thing that pisses me off about all this anti-gun rhetoric and whatever that affects, my business, because I make ammunition.
Yep.
Any law-abiding firearms owner never wants to use their weapon to harm someone,
right.
Ever. Every law-abiding gun owner wants to just make sure they have it to prevent themselves from being hurt, period, full stop.
Amen.
I say this as someone who owns firearms. Are you kidding me? I'm terrified that I might have to use it one day. I'm terrified. In fact, there's areas of Jacksonville I refuse to go to because I don't want to run the risk of having to even unholster the thing.
Yep.
Like, I don't want any part of that. But I also know that human trafficking is a real thing. Also, women are targeted. And, I'm not a senior citizen yet, so I don't know if I qualify as young, but maybe like not so old. And, women are stolen, children are stolen, and they're put into terrible conditions, and God only knows. I don't want to get into that. But like, it's important that people have the ability to protect just not themselves, but also be able to protect their families. And it's not about starting a fucking shootout or doing any stuff like that. That's not the point. And that's the whole argument for the left is like, oh, we need to prevent deranged lunatics from buying guns. First of all, they're buying them off the back of a truck. Okay. And they're buying them in, just some dude's house. They're not buying them legally. Legal gun owners are never your problem. It is the illegal gun owners, because crime doesn't stop being illegal once you pass laws around it. Murder, as far as I know, has always been illegal, but it doesn't stop crazy people from doing it. So pass all the laws you like, but all you're doing is hurting the good people. And that's fucking stupid, because you want more law-abiding citizens who actually know how to use their weapon to protect people. There's stories that are buried all the time about good Samaritans who stand up and shoot would-be criminals who are like walk into a bank and they're waving their gun around and then somebody takes them down. That's good, but these stories are buried. And guess what? There's everyday heroes like this all the time.
Was the guy in the mall who he saw the kid come out of the bathroom where he'd assembled his AR-15. He was going to kill people. And the Good Samaritan's walking by, sees this clown walk out of the bathroom and who's starting to point his gun at people and shoots him, puts him down. Good. The liberal media, because they couldn't ignore this, you know what their talking points were? Well, that man should be arrested because he had walked into a mall that had a no gun policy. That was their talking point. First off, as I explained to all of my northern friends, that sign is a corporate preference and is not binding. The laws of the state of Florida are binding. So you can put up all the signs you want. I'm not going to not defend myself because some mall owner is caving into the crazy left and puts a no guns please sign, because who's ignoring that is the crazy lunatic who doesn't care about the law to begin with.
That's right.
Yeah, and eventually we'll get there. I don't know how you make them see logic. I had this huge fight with someone, again, a New York friend, who was...
It starts by being nice, actually.
Well, starts by being nice. And they were going on and on about, guns. I said, in the neighborhood I live in, there are more firearms per capita than there are in Yemen. By your lights, there should be a bloodbath every day, right? And yet, it's peaceful and quiet. How do you explain that? So maybe it's not actually the presence of guns, but it's morality, personal responsibility, community. Maybe it's got nothing to do with guns at all. Of course, they can't handle that. That's a bad idea. Especially in New York, a lot of those people are waking up to it. The cops are minutes away when seconds matter. And I don't know what you don't get about that. It's terrifying. I just don't know what goes through their brains, honestly.
I was having a very pleasant conversation with a friend of mine who is surprised and abhorred that I'm involved in ammunition and firearms and all that stuff now. And she's like, why would you do such a thing? And I'm like, well, to be honest with you. And she's a very beautiful woman, like very beautiful, the kind where you'd actually look twice or maybe three times if you saw her on the street. And I'm like, look, women like you and me are stolen. We're harassed. We are abused. And we are injured by people because some crazy people in this world believe that we are their property and it's their right to get to do that.
Right.
So that person might be carrying a gun because they don't give a shit about the law.
At all.
And if I'm carrying a gun because I do give a shit about the law, when they start to attack me, sweetie, I don't need you to carry a gun, but I promise you, I will protect you because I'm not going down without a fight. And I love you and I don't want to see you hurt. So if you don't want to carry a gun, I respect your right to decline. But I also need you to respect my right to accept and stand up for you. She's like, well, I grew up in a country where this was abnormal and weird. I'm like, I understand, but you're a citizen of this country now.
Yep.
And women like me are a lot more common than you think, where I'm sorry, I don't feel like being raped. I don't feel like being hauled off to some weird dungeon and, abused for the rest of my life or killed or stolen from my husband. No, I don't feel like having any of that happen to me. And I'm sorry, but I'm not as strong as men physically. I believe in biology. And, there's two genders. Yep, I came out and said it.
Believing in biology. That's what got you kicked off LinkedIn.
No, that wasn't it. It was just being a conservative. But like having, having biological differences, I'm just not as strong. So if a man who's twice my size wants to overpower me and I have nothing to stop him from doing it, he'll win. And then I just get to be victimized that day.
Right.
To which I say, no, thank you.
No, thank
Again,
you.
I cannot emphasize this enough. Law-abiding gun owners have no desire to use their weapons ever. We want to go to the range, have fun, and play because that's the place to do that. In a civilized society, firearms are there to keep a civilized society because a well-armed society is a well-mannered society.
All day long. When any of my colleagues or friends on the left start to go on and on about muskets, I said, "Wait, stop right there." Right. The whole point of the revolutionary generation was Madison explicitly wanted private citizens to own superior firearms to the government. That was his goal, right? Kentucky long rifles beat British muskets. That's part of why we won the war, right? And by Madison's lights, I should have a Black Hawk parked outside with my own ICBM, right? He wanted the citizens, the private citizens, to be better armed than any standing military that the government had as a protection against tyranny, right? That's a little extreme because things have changed and grown, but the principle remains viable. That every single tyrant, the first thing they want to do is disarm the citizenry. Period. And if you
need to disarm,
listen,
if you need to disarm your citizens, you suck at governing.
You suck at governing. You should be able to walk through your city without legion. And the best part is all these clowns that want to take away average people's right to self-defense, to take away your right to self-defense, are surrounded by bodyguards all day long. Governor Hochul.
Well, of course, but look, it's more of the same thing. You'll own nothing and be happy. Well, you'll own no firearms and be vulnerable too.
Yeah, same thing. You'll have
no money because we'll give you an allowance. You'll have no job, blah, blah, blah. It's a whole big fucked thing that is going on right now. I'm sorry. I stand for sovereignty. I will never get off this fucking soapbox until I'm dead. So that's not an invitation to anybody listening.
It's not an invitation to cut you short. So what, well, actually not switching gears at all, but what, I gather that everybody I know has ever gone into sort of arms manufacture, depending on where they are, you're focused on bullets specifically for, not for Gatling guns on airplanes, but
no, we just make 9mm right now. And that's all we're focusing on at the moment. It's an intentional business decision because we believe that when you have fragmented attention, you're basically just sucking at multiple things.
Right.
I'd like to not suck at anything. So we're focusing on 9mm. We want to do it well. We intend to dazzle people. We also want to make sure that we're entering the market with the most popular caliber. And once we build our brand and build a loyal customer base of people who know that we have a superior product, they'll be back, but they'll also vocally tell us, hey, you guys need to sell the 45 or you need to do this. Right. And our customers will tell us what caliber to expand into next based on availability of components, profitability, and frankly, our ability to bring it to market successfully will determine what we do next. I mean, I have a hunch it'll probably be the 45 is what we introduce next. I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, can you do the 223 556? And it's like, well, I could if it was profitable, but that's going to be a hard no for me. So I like to keep lights on. And I'm sorry, it's just not a super profitable caliber. There's not a lot of money in it.
Right.
And money is important. You want the people you buy from to do well. You don't want to just keep people ever so slightly above the poverty line. I can't advocate for you in Washington if we don't make money. I cannot give jobs to patriots if we don't make money. I can't do the things to advocate for you, your rights, and everything you believe in if we don't make money, because money is how shit gets done.
And absolutely true. In terms of people who are, shooters who are experienced enough, right? Who actually tell the difference between ammo from one manufacturer and another. Like, what are the things that go into a far better, quality, consistent shootability of your 9mm versus what someone else is doing? Is it the materials used? Is the gunpowder? Like, what are the things that really drive the quality difference that someone would see when choosing between different ammo?
Well, it's the materials that you're working with. You can't just use any old combination of materials. Not every primer will go with every powder successfully. So there's recipe creation, if you will, recipe formula, pick whatever you want. I'm a foodie. I'm going to go with recipe. But like, the recipe matters. The actual components themselves matter. You can't just use crappy parts. Can you imagine if a Rolls Royce was made with plastic? No, you need good quality materials. You also need to combine them really well. So that's two things. But beyond that, you need to be supervising the production process. It comes down to the machines that you're using, the calibration of the machines, the inspection process, and throwing out anything that doesn't pass inspection. You have to have very high standards. We're using laser devices. We have optic devices. We also have a lot of measurement devices for weight and size and any sort of defects. So things have a lot of checkpoints, but we've got an 8-point quality control system that begins with the component sourcing. And what it does, because of this, and my husband is like super annoyingly obsessed in a good way about quality. I say annoying because I'm his wife and he wants to talk about it at 1 a.m. when I want to, count sheep. But the rest of the time when I'm awake, I'm here for it.
The percentage of the brass of the alloy is not what's exciting me. I gotta get enough.
No, he's like, oh my God, babe, I got to tell you about these new projectiles. You can tell me tomorrow, sweetie. Good night. He's obsessed, but that's a good thing. You want that from the people who are making your ammo. You want that obsession. You also want them to sleep. So there's both. But it really matters about the overall process and the dedication to quality. And our customers tell us, and we've experienced personally, all the same things. We have tight grouping. We have fast cycling. We have orders that are shipped out where 100% of the rounds are solid and all of the primers are seated correctly. And, when you have unsafe ammo, you can hurt somebody else by accident. You can hurt yourself by accident. Right. You can have a misfire. Your gun can blow up in your hand. You can ruin your very expensive weapon. Quality ammunition is important. People will often say, I just want to put it in my gun and have it go bang. Well, it might go bang in a way you don't want.
Exactly.
It could blow your shit up. Right. And you know what? When we were first getting into the business and he was testing ammo, he bought a whole bunch out there. And he was, learning how to do everything and perfecting his recipes. We blew up one of our guns. It happened. So it's not an aberration to think that lousy quality ammunition can cause failure or potential injury. It can. It just can. And a lot of people are ignorant to that fact. Maybe they never go to the range. You should. If you're a law-abiding citizen and you carry a weapon on you, you should practice.
Practice. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, you only drive once a year. You're bound to be crappy at it. You should probably go to the range periodically and get good. Have that reflexive muscle memory with how to draw your weapon safely, how to make sure that your finger is, not sitting on the trigger unless you plan to pull it, how you're actually holding it correctly and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of nuances to the safety, but the safety of the ammunition begins in the product selection.
That's awesome. Oh, good. Well, I can't wait to try some of it. It's good to know that everyone's focused on quality because, having shot a range of ammo over the years, nothing is more
range
of ammunition. Range.
See what you did there. Listen, there's so many dad jokes in this industry.
So
screw the sovereignty. I'm here for the dad jokes.
never ending.
The caliber of the jokes is outstanding.
The caliber of the jokes are really what we're here for.
I'm putting them in my database.
Right. Are you? Oh, yeah. That was on target. So yeah. So nothing makes me
you're funny.
nervous whenever I get a misfire, a squib. I usually toss the whole whole batch, right? I mean, just that makes me very nervous because with good
Of course it
analytics, never
does.
happens.
And you know what? You're not alone in that. A lot of people are incredibly ridiculously uncomfortable and they don't know what to do if their gun jams. And I used to be that way until I started going to the range. And, there's actually a lot of law enforcement departments who specifically wish to purchase inferior ammunition for their practice because they want to make sure that their officers know how to handle jams.
Right.
And so that they don't panic.
It's
So
going to matter.
I remember
very
when
much
we
to
first
you.
started selling to law enforcement, I actually heard that argument and because I was like, oh, well, of course you want quality and this is what it means. And he's like, actually, big part of the reason why we don't want quality is because we need to be prepared for misfires and gun jams. I'm like, wow.
Right.
I never thought about that. But
Under
that's
conditions
a
that are
very
very nerve-wracking.
solid. Yeah, exactly. You
Yep.
need to stay calm in a crisis.
No doubt.
How do you do it? Put yourself in the crisis a lot.
All day long. No,
In a controlled environment. It's like practicing your sales pitch before you actually go. You don't want to practice with live rounds. No.
No, but it's also funny too, because you have to be very clear about safety. Like all of my kids roll their eyes, and it's been drilled into them. And any time of the day in doing, no matter what we're doing, I will yell out, "Every gun is," and they will say, "Loaded." just constant, like never ever ending. Like if you saw me,
your house sounds like a fun place to be.
If you saw me clear it, you saw me take the clip out, you saw me put it down, I turned around and picked up a glass of water and turned back around. What is that gun? And they say loaded, right? It is always loaded. The accidents, it's almost inconceivable to me that accidents happen, right? It's inconceivable. If you always have muzzle control, if you always assume everything's loaded, how do you have an accident? It never makes, it's horrifying when it does. Horrifying.
I'm going to take a hard left here. Every time I hear the word inconceivable, all I can think of is the short guy, the Sicilian from the Princess
I think
Bride.
you don't know what this word means.
You keep using that word. I do not think you know what it means.
Keep using that word. That's right. I don't think you know what this word means.
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable. Right. Yeah. Never started land war in Asia. Assuming the attempts to steal the elections do not prevail this time, and we see a rational, my particular prediction, which I've been pinning my hat on, is 54 Senate seats and at least 48 majority in the House is my prediction. What's going to happen, no matter how many days it takes to count. So we'll see how that goes. And then in 2024, Donald's got to step aside and let Ron run, because if Donald runs again, he'll lose. That's my thought. What do you think?
I think I'm observing.
I think, yeah, and it's
because honestly, I could give you my opinion on what I think is going to happen. I cannot opine on just conjecture or ideas. I have no freaking clue. I'd rather just watch it unfold and have an opinion later. Honestly, that's probably one of the things I can't stand about a lot of social media and news media. It's like, it's all hyperbole. It's all bullshit. It's speculative. It's getting people hyped up because people need to feel important. They need to keep eyeballs on their content. Talk about the shit that already happened, like even people who want to weigh in, like as marketers, on like Elon Musk buying Twitter. Oh, you should do this. You should do that. No, actually, the dust hasn't settled. You should just sit down and observe, because there is no advice that would be really good right now other than watch it happen, because you don't know which way the wind is blowing. Give it a minute. So it's how I feel about a lot of things. I mean, I have strong opinions, obviously, about what's going on based on things that have been made available, even if they're hidden from public view because the mainstream media obscures it. It's still out there. Yep. If it's out there, I've got some thoughts. But in terms of crystal ball, mine's in the shop.
Fair enough. Good for you. Well, what would be the final thought you'd leave our listeners with? If they have to remember something brilliant and searing out of the mind of Laura DiBenedetto, what is it?
Brilliant and searing.
That
is a very tall order, sir.
Hey, we aim for entertainment on this show.
I don't know. Go to my website, stock up on freedom seeds, have fun at the range. Brilliant and searing. That was not, but have
fun at the range. It's not bad.
Yeah, practice. It's a good skill to have. It's also fun. It's a great way to, ladies, it's a great way to bond with the men in your life and other women. It's great to keep yourself safe and keep your children safe. men, it's a good thing for you to practice and, just integrate into good family values to protect the ones you love. Like, I think it's a good thing, and honestly, anybody who's law abiding isn't trying to hurt anybody anyway. So go to the range, have fun, get good. And then, in the event something ever has to happen, you're prepared and you can potentially save a life. It might be your own.
There you go. That's perfect. Thank you so much for taking the time today. It's been a delight to have you on. And, we look forward to having maybe a post-launch event where we can celebrate millions of rounds of sales and oversold in the first week.
Oh, we're actually already launched. If you go to sovereignammo.com, you can buy Freedom Seeds now.
All right. Great. We'll do that. Sovereign Ammo.
Those are my pronouns, by the way. Pew, pew. I like it.
my pronouns are thiggledy, hibbity, and hibbity farbin. And I feel really offended if you don't use them appropriately.
Can you spell that for me?
I cannot. I cannot. Nope. So with that, thank you so much and happy election day.
Thank you, too.
Learn what Bitcoin is, how it works, and why it matters. Bitcoin 101, your ultimate guide to the fundamentals of blockchain.